Breeze starting. My first husband was always working late at work. He worked in an office downtown and said he had to work late to get ahead. I complained, but he always said he was doing it for us. He called once again and said he would work a couple more hours and that I shouldn't keep him late for dinner. I felt sorry for him and decided to buy something for him at a fast food restaurant and take it to him. I walked into the restaurant with dinner for him. When I got to his office door, I saw his secretary bent over his desk with her skirt pulled up and no panties on. They were making so much noise they didn't notice me walk in. He exploded at his secretary and then turned around and saw me. Too late for excuses, I yelled that he didn't need to come home. He could stay with his whore. The next day, I would be at the divorce attorney's office. At that point, we had only been married for 2 years. I was taking what I could from him. I remember saying that if I had it to do over again, I would hook up with some guy and fuck him in front of him to get revenge. I guess I felt cheated for not getting revenge. I started dating again, but I was wary of most guys. Then I met Jack. We met about 15 years ago. Jack and his friends used to go to the local nightclubs. I guess that's where people met. That's where I ran into Jack. We hit it off quickly and spent most of our time together. Our lives were good, or at least seemed to be. Jack was a human resources manager at one of the big factories. I had a good job as a department manager at one of the local department stores. Our lives seemed to be moving along at a satisfying pace. We didn't have children, not that we didn't want them, but we just didn't. Jack's friends were pranksters and were always pulling pranks. His friends were always trying to get at me. They would tell me what a pussy Jack used to be. I would answer them that that was before he met me, and now his life had changed. One day I got a little angry. I told his friends that if he ever cheated on me, I would get even with him. I remember Jack replied that I shouldn't worry about it because he wasn't going to cheat on me and that he loved me too much. About 2 weeks later, his buddies decided to have a little fun with me. One of them took his girlfriend to Jack's office, and the other called me and asked if I would bring Jack dinner. He would be working late. The idea was that when I walked into the office, I would think it was Jack having a woman, when in fact it was his buddy with his girlfriend. When I see who it is, everyone will laugh at me. They didn't know that it was under these circumstances that my first divorce happened. Earlier in the week, Jack told me he had a dinner appointment with his superiors who were involved in the latest contract negotiations. I must have forgotten about his meetings since he had so many. It wasn't important to know he always had meetings. So I showed up with Chinese food and headed for Jack's office. Bill, one of Jack's friends, was holding his girlfriend over Jack's desk, plowing her fields. I heard sounds as I approached the door. Through the window, I could see a man loving a woman. Of course, I thought it was Jack, since it was his office. I didn't go any further, just threw my food right on the floor and walked out the door crying. Jack's friends must have run after me, but before they could catch up, I got into my car and sped away. I was terrified and out of my mind. I walked into the first bar I could find, a real dump, and ordered a drink. Some guy, a complete stranger, came up to me and asked if I wanted to keep him company. At that moment, I was crying. That's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I decided to get back at Jack. This time I was going to get even. I brought this complete stranger to my house and slept with him. This time I was going to get revenge. God, how stupid I was. There was absolutely no excuse for my actions. I was furious with Jack. I had allowed this complete stranger to take revenge on me. How stupid can a woman be? I heard the phone ringing, but I wasn't going to answer it. I wanted Jack to catch me having fun with another man to get back at him. Jack showed up a few minutes later. He saw a stranger between my legs who was squeezing me as hard as he could. When Jack entered the room, he looked at me and I asked him, "So what do you think, you cheating bastard?" At that moment, Jack's friends walked into the room and saw me with this stranger I'd picked up. Jack turned around and walked out. His friends tried to stop him, but he kept walking. This is what happened after Jack left. They all stood there wondering what had happened. About the same time the stranger poured his load into me, he stood up and said to me, "If you ever want to get even again, nice lady, give me a call." He left me a business card and smiled at them as he walked past them. I looked at them and said, "Where the hell is Jack? I want to know his fucking answer." I told him that if she ever cheated on me, I'd do the same. Where the hell is he? Jim spoke first. "He's gone, Bree. He's out the door. We're all just here to tell you that Jack didn't sleep with anyone." "Bullshit, he did too." I saw him in his office sleeping with some woman. Barb spoke up. That was me, Bree. I was making love to Bill. God, I'm so sorry. We were just having a little joke with you and Jack. You ran away so fast we didn't catch you in time. We called Jack and told him and waited for him to come back to the office. He asked us all to come here and apologize to you. That's why we're here. A joke? What the hell kind of sick joke is that? You must have ruined my marriage. What kind of friend is even capable of that? Where was Jack if he wasn't there? Jim spoke up. He had that meeting with his bosses over dinner about the contract. Remember he was telling you about it the other day when we were all together. I cried and told them all to get out. They tried to explain something, but I said I didn't want to see any of them again. I was so fucking stupid. All I could think about was revenge. God, could Jack ever forgive me? I kept trying to call Jack. I had to apologize. I had to tell him the truth. Finally, Jack picked up the phone. I guess he figured I wouldn't stop calling until he did. I kept telling him how sorry I was and asking him to forgive me. It was one big, giant mistake. It was all his friend's fault. Finally, Jack spoke to me. Bree, you brought a strange man into our marital bed within an hour of thinking I had done something I promised you I wouldn't do. Our marriage is over. If that's the full extent of your trust in me, it's not enough. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I loved you. I think I'll always have feelings for you. You can't just fall out of love. At the same time, Bree, I hate you. I hate what you did to our marriage. By the way, your stranger friend wasn't even using protection. I hope you didn't get an STD or even get pregnant. Don't call me again. You can talk to Sally, my attorney, about property distribution. I went to the doctor and took the postpartum pill. I was glad for at least that. I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I lost the man I loved because his friends pulled a prank. Jack told me he could never forgive me. It would be too much. Eventually, I was able to get my life together without him, but I know it will be something I will never forget. I was working at a department store when I got more bad news. They were closing all of our stores. Now I'm going to be out of a job too. Damn it, my life really sucked. I befriended a human resources lady who was trying to help her employees. She would take the resumes of those she thought were the best employees and tell us she would vouch for us when we interviewed. She was really trying hard for us, but she was also losing jobs herself. We became friends, not buddies, but friends. I didn't know much about her personal life, and I certainly wasn't going to tell her what an asshole I was. About a month after our store closed and everyone was out of work, we all got an email from Jen, our former HR manager. She had gotten a job as a human resources assistant at a large plant in our area. Since it was a union plant and our department store was also a union store, she asked them to interview all of her references for employment. I was one of those interviewed. I was very excited, but a little worried about my chances of being hired. I didn't tell Jen, but her boss was my ex-husband, Jack. When I got to the interview, she introduced me to Jack, my ex. Talk about someone seeing a ghost, it was Jack. He was totally confused. Then I found out the real reason. I thought he was seeing me, but that was only part of the reason. You see, he was engaged to marry Jan. Quite an unpleasant story, if I may say so. Jen told me later that she and Jack had talked it over and were going to hire me. But if I had any business in HR, I would have to go to her. I didn't mind. I needed a job, and this was a really good opportunity. A good job with a high salary. Jen and Jack were getting married, and Jen invited me to the wedding. There was no way I was going. I'd lost Jack, and it wasn't in my best interest to be around him. It pissed me off that he'd made up with his friends. The same ones who pulled the prank and helped us get divorced. Don't get me wrong, what I did was completely wrong. Picking up a stranger to get even was wrong. Completely wrong, I admit it. But I blame his friends for starting the whole damn thing. I'd love to get revenge, but not on Jack, but on Bill and Jim, the ones who pulled this prank and helped ruin my life. I saw no way to frame them and eventually gave up on the idea. It had been a few months since I had started my new job. I even had time to say hello to Jack when I saw him. I didn't have much reason to go to the staff, but when I did, I almost always talked to Jen. We were still friends, but not close. The best way to explain it is this. We didn't hang out together, but I consider her a friend who went out of her way to help me get a job. I respect her for that and wish her and Jack the best. They are two good people. I continued to live my life. I was careful about dating. After all, I had already had 2 failed marriages. I told myself to take it easy. I socialized with several single and divorced girls from work. I think we all had a lot in common. Then I met Matthew. God, he's so handsome. He came over and asked me to dance. I kept telling myself, slow and steady, don't rush things. Matthew was divorced and had 2 children who lived with his ex-wife. We started dating and he began to tell me about himself. He was a police officer, yes, a police officer. He had been on the force for 15 years now. Tall, handsome, muscular, the dream of most women. I asked him what caused his divorce, and he told me that his ex couldn't accept his job. She was either afraid for him or jealous of his job. Whenever he went to work, she worried about him, worried that he might not come home. And when he had a break, he dealt with street women, as he called them, everything from prostitutes to muggers. He laughed when he told me about them. He said he had to deal with men off the street, too. I told him a little about myself, but I didn't go any deeper. I didn't want to scare him off. We'd been seeing each other quite a bit. We were 2 adults, so in case you were wondering, we had sex. It was okay, but I had a tendency to hold back. I was afraid of falling in love again. After a few months of dating, he wanted to know more about me. I told him I would tell him more when I felt more comfortable with him. I'm not sure he understood, but he was nice enough to tell me that he didn't want to pressure me, but he thought he might be falling in love. He said he knew he was in love. I hated to admit it, but I felt the same way about him. We went to a club where our whole group was hanging out. A few of the girls had dates, and I was with Matt. As we danced, I thought about Matt and what a great guy he was. I was afraid that by telling him about my past, I might lose him. Then I looked up and saw Bill and Jim with a couple of girls. When I say whores, that's what I mean. From the way they were acting, I realized that their bust size exceeded their IQ. I got very nervous when they saw me. It was the first time I had seen them so close since my marriage broke up. I got scared and started shaking. Matt hugged me tightly and asked me what was wrong. I looked up and saw Jim and Bill telling their companions something funny and pointing in my direction. Then they smirked and grinned at me. God, how I hated them, and now they were probably going to try to ruin my life again. I felt tears come to my eyes, thinking it was over for me when Matt said, "Honey, what's the matter? I've never seen you like this, and it's bothering me." Matt, I've made some terrible mistakes in my life that I've been afraid to tell you about, and now those mistakes are going to take you away from me. I'm so sorry. Nonsense, Bree. I care about you very much, and whatever you've done, we can work it out. I'm a cop, and I've seen some horrible things in my life that I've had to live with after I've seen them. I know if you give me a chance and you're honest with me, we can work this out. Now let's sit down and you tell me about the horrible things you've done. Matt, I've been married twice and divorced twice. I know I told you that my first husband cheated on me, and when I discovered he was sleeping with his secretary, I asked for a divorce. But I never told you about my second marriage and divorce. I went on to tell him about how I picked up a stranger to get revenge. And all this time my husband was innocent of any wrongdoing. I then told him about Bill and Jim, who were watching us and laughing. They said it was a prank, and their antics, along with my stupidity, had ruined my life. I told Matt that I would understand if he never wanted to be with me again. Between tears, I tried to convey to him that I wasn't a slut or a whore. I was a woman who held a grudge and let it get out of control. Matt looked at me and took my hand. Bree, I know this was hard for you to tell me. You should know by now that I really care about you. Time will tell if it's love. I can accept all of your past, call it carelessness, as long as it is your past. Always tell me the truth, and I know we can work things out. I sense in you a real animosity towards these 2 men. I can feel it killing you from the inside out. Do you want to tell me about it now, or do you want me to talk to them right now and work it out? Oh God, Matt, please don't talk to them. I hate what they did to my marriage, and I've always wanted to get back at them. I'm afraid that if I do something, it will backfire and ruin my life even more. Ever since I met you, I thought my life was finally getting better. Bree, do you trust me? Yes, of course I do, Matt. I trust you. I mean, really trust. You want me to help you settle an old score? God, Matt, I don't know. I don't want to get you involved in my problems, but yeah, I'd trust you with my life. What are you trying to say, Matt? You're innocent in all this. I didn't want you involved. I wanted to not only get back at them, but I wanted to let them know what it was like to be ridiculed. Bree, if you're involved, that includes me. You can't try to do everything alone, Bree. If you're my woman, and you have to tell me you are, I'll help you get your revenge. I really care about you, Matt, and I want to be your woman. I really do. But I don't want you to get hurt. The last thing I'd want to do is hurt you, honestly, Matt. Okay, Bree, just be my woman and together we'll overcome any problems you have. But I'll tell you right now, you have to trust me completely, no exceptions. Matt, I'll do anything you ask, but please don't cheat on me or hurt me. I don't think I can go through that again, especially since I trust you completely. With God as my witness, I promise to never cheat on you or hurt you, Bree. I want you to know that if someone hurts you, they will hurt me too. I protect and serve for a living, and there is no one I want to protect and serve more than you, Bree. Tears came to my eyes as we kissed and kissed again. We got up and danced, and I cradled my new man in my arms. I was starting to feel secure. Maybe life had stopped biting me in the ass. We continued to date, and I felt unburdened. I put all my cards on the line, and Matt still accepted me. I became a much happier person. Matt promised that he would keep me in the loop about anything he was involved in that could be misinterpreted. He said he wanted and needed my trust if things were going to work out. I began to trust him completely. I couldn't believe I could ever trust a man again, but Matt was the exception. He always kept his promises. If you think he was going to cheat on me and try stuff with me, you're wrong. He was the sweetest and nicest man I've ever met. He always put me first and did his best to put me at ease when he had to deal with unremarkable personalities. About midweek, Matt showed up with his two kids, Mike and Michelle. They were twins, beautiful-looking kids. I think they were about 12 years old each. They were so respectable, but still teenagers. Matt said they were going out for pizza and asked if I wanted to join them. He said the kids wanted to meet me. We ate pizza, and the kids told me their likes and dislikes. They said their mom had remarried an accountant. He was a good man and treated them well, but he wasn't a daddy. They loved their dad. I remember Mike saying, "If Daddy loves you, then it's okay with us. What should we call you?" Mike, Bree, or whatever you feel comfortable with. Michelle looked at me and said, "Bree, you are beautiful. I can see why Daddy loves you. Mike and I are so glad Daddy found someone, especially someone as beautiful as you." Michelle, you are a beautiful girl, and you will be a beautiful woman someday. Even if you are beautiful on the outside, make sure you stay just as beautiful on the inside. Michelle walked over and hugged me. Tears came to my eyes. Matt was right when he said I would love his children. One night, Matt told me that he had to go out with some very special friends, and he wanted me to know about it in case anyone saw him with women. I asked if he could explain it in more detail, and he said the less I knew, the better it would be for me. He wanted to make sure I knew he wasn't having sex with these women. It was a dirty business. It wasn't part of his job description either, but he was doing a favor for a very special friend. I realized then that he never forgot his promise to help me. I couldn't believe that I trusted Matt. He turned out to be a very important person in my life. On Saturday, he asked me out again. He wanted to go where he thought Bill and Jim should be. We went with two other couples from work. As we sat down at the table, an old friend who I had ended a relationship with came up to me. It was Barb, the woman who had slept with Bill that horrible night. Barb came over to our table and asked if she could talk to me. I didn't know what to say until Matt told me that I should listen to what she had to say. So I told Barb that she should say it to both me and Matt. I had no secrets from him. The three of us took our minds off the others for a few minutes and sat down at another table. It was still early and the room wasn't crowded yet. Barb apologized to me again, saying that she hadn't participated in the preparations. Yes, she had participated, but only as a horny woman. They didn't tell her about it until later when I was already out on the street. But even then, it wasn't the whole truth. She said that they, Bill and Jim, had always been a little jealous of Jack. Because of that, they pulled pranks on him more often than not. According to her, when she found out that the two of them were not really sorry for what they had done, she punched Bill in the face and left him. She hasn't seen either of them since. She said that just thinking about them makes her feel sick. She apologized again and had tears in her eyes. She really wanted my forgiveness and friendship. No one was a better judge of character than Matt. I looked at him and he smiled and nodded. It was his way of telling me that Barb was being honest with me. I turned to her again and hugged her and told her I forgave her. She said that she had just arrived with her steady beau. They are very serious about each other and asked if they could join our group for the night. I told her sure, and she waved her hand at the handsome man, and then I introduced Barb and her boyfriend to everyone, including Matt. We all had a great time and enjoyed our friendship. We were a group that trusted each other. Barb told us to see who had just come in. We saw 3 women who had come in together. They were hard to explain. They were knockout, but at the same time promiscuous. They were rowdy, but also made you look at them. Of course, some of the single men, or at least those who weren't with the women that evening, started hitting on them. The girls were agreeing to drinks, but they were also playing it cool. They couldn't have been prostitutes because we could see they weren't looking for John. Our little group had to admit that these 3 women were interesting to watch. When they danced, they were sexy, but if a guy put his hands in the wrong place, he was told off like a child. These girls were different, something between a cop, a prostitute, and a teacher. I watched Matt look at the girls and saw that they were smiling at him. A slight prick of jealousy swept over me, but I managed to hold it back. Matt leaned over and kissed me and then whispered in my ear so no one else could hear, "You are my woman. Always remember that. These 3 women are my friends." Enough said. He took my hand and we headed to the dance floor. As Matt and I danced, I remembered him telling me that I had done the right thing with Barb. She had been used too, but not to the extent that I had. Barb and I had been friends for several years. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She always chose to work in the emergency room because, she said, things happened at a fast pace there. I remember her telling me that's how she got to be as wild as she was. She said the blood was flowing in a rapid stream all day, and she came out to help slow it down. She met Bill and Jim around the same time I met Jack, my second husband. She was just having fun and didn't want a serious relationship, and that especially bothered Bill. When Jack and I got married, all 3 of them were in our wedding party. I guess the guys couldn't get over the fact that Jack was happier and had gotten a girlfriend, and Barb told them she wasn't ready for marriage. I went to the ladies' room with Barb. As you know, we are not allowed to write alone. That was a joke, readers. I was glad Barb was back. I really liked her as a friend, and she was much calmer now. Apparently, our incident made her think too. She told me that her boyfriend was Dr. Ray. He was an emergency room doctor who had transferred here from another hospital. She told me that she was frank with him and told him that she was leading a dissolute lifestyle but was actually waiting for the right man. She said she thought it might be Ray. I started to get excited for her. We walked back to our table, and just as we were looking toward the door, 2 assholes walked in. Yes, it was Bill and Jim. Oddly enough, until you got to know them better, they seemed like pretty decent guys. We always thought they were just joking around, but now we knew the truth. They had an evil side. They took more pleasure in embarrassing others rather than bettering themselves. They were known in the parlor, as they went there often. They said hello to a few of their so-called friends and took a table. It didn't take them long to notice the 3 seductresses who seemed to be the center of attention. They hadn't seen us and our group yet. We were busy minding our own business. We all started dancing and telling our stories. I was dancing a slow tune with Matt when he pulled me close to him. Looking into my eyes, he told me he loved me. I pressed myself harder against him and said, "Matt, I'm falling in love with you too, and it scares me. I don't know if I can handle it after 2 failed marriages, and you already have 2 kids. Honey, as long as you trust me and we talk about our problems first, everything will be fine. I promise you that everything will work out. Besides, when you meet my kids, Mike and Michelle, you'll love them and they'll love you too." It wasn't long before Bill and Jim approached the 3 sexy women. They bought them drinks and invited them to their table. The girls behaved calmly. They told Bill that they always stayed in 3s. It was their way of protecting themselves from unwanted suitors. Of course, Bill invited all 3 of them to his table. From that point on, we had no idea what they were talking about. Bill and Jim took turns dancing with all 3. The girls seemed to have calmed down a bit. They allowed themselves very little touching on the dance floor. If one of the guys put his hand down to her ass, she just carelessly pulled her hand back. Eventually, Jim saw Barb and me and looked at her in surprise. I guess they didn't realize we were going to be friends again. Jim pointed in our direction and said something to the three girls. We realized they still hadn't gotten over their prank, and it was pissing me off. Matt leaned over and kissed me and said, "Leave it alone, honey. Leave it alone." He was reading me like a book. The girls looked in our direction, and I don't know if they snickered or smiled. But Bill and Jim were certainly laughing. Barb and her doctor boyfriend said she had to leave early. They had to get up early for work the next day. The emergency room was always open for business. We all gave each other friendly kisses, and of course all the men shook hands. Barb thanked me again and apologized again for her past behavior. I shouldn't have waited so long to talk to her. She really was a good friend. Another mistake on my part, but at least these mistakes are being corrected. As Barb and Ray left the living room, Bill and Jim watched them follow. Then they went back to their three ladies who were waiting for them. Matt told me it was time for us to leave, too. He had to work tomorrow, but he would probably see me in the morning. I wasn't quite sure what he was getting at, but I decided to wait and see. I knew Matt loved me and would answer all my questions, but I knew he didn't want to be questioned. He dropped me off at my house, kissed me goodnight, told me to get a good night's sleep, and told me he'd see me in the morning. And here we go again. See you in the morning. Why? I took a shower and went to bed. I fell asleep quickly. Around 8 in the morning, the phone rang, and I was in a semi-fainting state when I answered it. It was Barb. "Bree, come to the hospital right away." "Barb? What's wrong? What happened? What happened?" "Nothing happened. Everything's fine. I can't tell you over the phone. Just get your little ass over here as soon as you can." And she hung up. What the hell had happened? What could it be? I thought about Matt, but if he was hurt, I know Barb would have said something. I hurriedly got dressed and headed to the hospital. As I entered the hospital emergency room, Barb ran up to me. "Come with me quickly," said Barb, pulling me into a private room with the sign, "Hospital Staff Only," on the door. It was a small exam room overlooking another room. In the room lay two men who looked stupefied. They were Bill and Jim. I asked what happened, and Barb said she wasn't sure if they were both drugged when they were brought in. Barb then began to explain what she saw when they were brought in. As I could see, they were both bald. Barb told me it wasn't just their heads and laughed, but, she said, it wasn't the best or the worst, depending on how you look at it. She said both men were wearing condoms, really condoms. They had them on like that under the blankets until the doctors figured out how to get them off. The doctors assumed that the condoms had been filled with superglue and then stretched over them. The problem now was how to remove the condoms with the least amount of pain. It seemed that the skin might come off along with them. They would both need a little surgery. Barb laughed and said there was superglue running down the crevices of their asses, too. Barb said, "If I didn't know any better and your boyfriend wasn't a cop, I'd think you were behind it." She laughed. "Barb, I didn't do it. Although I wish I could take credit for it. It couldn't have happened to two more deserving people." "Bree, do you think it could have been those three girls we saw them with last night? I wonder what they did to piss them off." "Barb, Matt and I left right after you. Bill and Jim were still with the girls. Maybe they went overboard with the shenanigans." The two boys started to come to their senses. They were screaming in pain, saying their intimate places hurt. Barb said we had better get out of the room. We weren't supposed to be in there. Dr. Ray, Barb's boyfriend, came out of the room and told Barb that these guys were really having a hard time. He told Barb, and of course me, since I was with Barb, that they were getting ready to remove the condoms and knew the guys were going to lose some skin, too. When you remove superglue, you lose skin, too. Ray then kissed Barb on the lips, said it was good to see me again, and headed for the room. Barb said she had time for a coffee break, and we headed to the cafeteria. We were both happy and talked about this and that. When we got back to the emergency room, Matt was standing there in his uniform. He looked like a completely different person in his uniform, but he was still handsome. He said he had been called in about two men claiming to have been victimized by three women. He was there to take their statements as soon as they came out of surgery. He introduced me to his partner, saying I was his girlfriend. His partner turned out to be a woman, and a good-looking one at that. For some reason, I wasn't jealous anymore. Jill, the officer, said it was nice to meet me and that I had gotten a very nice man. If she wasn't already married, I could compete with her. She was nice, but I didn't feel threatened. Matt was my man, and I was his woman. No one would ever separate us. Matt told me he would stop by tonight and we could have dinner. Barb asked if we could have a double date so she and Ray could join us. We set up a time and told Barb to meet us there. Matt and Ray seemed to find common ground and got along great with each other. The four of us were sitting around having a drink before dinner, and Ray mentioned the two men who had been brought in. He said the surgeries had been successful, but the men would always remember it. It would be months before their hair would return to normal. Barb and I just sat and listened. Ray asked Matt exactly what happened and who did it to those guys. I remember him responding, "I would never want to meet those girls and have them mad at me." We all laughed. Matt said that two guys had met three girls the day before. Ray said he remembered seeing them when we were all out walking. He remembers the girls being knocked out. He asked Matt if they knew who they were. Matt said two of the guys said they gave them some names, but they don't believe those are their real names. They had never seen them before and hoped they would never see them again. They invited the girls to a motel. According to them, at first, the girls refused to go with them. Plus, there were three of them. The guys said they didn't mind because they could take care of all three women. Eventually, they all went to the motel. According to the men, and this is the only side we heard, the women opened the booze and they think the girls spiked it. Probably some kind of date rape drug. We laughed because we thought it was funny that girls would have to date rape a man. The men recall taking off all their clothes and the girls played with their genitals, making them tense up. One of the girls said they had to use condoms and the men had no problem with that. They said the girls added some kind of lubricant to the condom, saying it was much easier to put it on that way. The guys said that when the condoms were put on, they must have passed out. When they woke up, the girl was gone. They said they were in pain. Their hair had been shaved off on their heads and in their intimate areas. The condoms were sticking and causing a hell of a lot of pain. They couldn't get them off. They felt like their asses were covered. They called 911 and they were taken to the hospital. When they got to the hospital, they were given medication for the pain. Matt, is there any information on the whereabouts of these women? Who they are and why they did this? Anything at all? Matt looked at all of us and said, "The only thing we can surmise is that the guys had a big beef with someone. We asked them for names of people who might have a grudge, and the first two they mentioned were Bree and Barb. I told them that both women had been interviewed, and neither of them had any idea what had happened. I told them that you both think they got what they deserved." Barb replied, "You're right." Bree only smiled. Matt continued, "I then told the two men that the two ladies they were talking about were with me at the time. I took off my police cap and that's when they recognized me and started apologizing to me." Matt said his partner Jill told the men that she didn't know what kind of shit they were trying to pull, but she better never have heard them accuse two innocent women. I couldn't believe Matt's partner was sticking up for us. I'm gonna love this girl. Matt told us that they didn't have any leads on the three women. He thought they might have come from out of town. Bill and Jim were afraid to press any charges since they didn't know who was responsible, and it would really ruin their reputations if too much information leaked out. We were all smiling when dinner arrived. We ate well and had a great conversation. Ray asked if everyone agreed to go out next Saturday. We all said yes and decided where we would go. That week went great for me. I asked for a meeting with Jen and Jack. When I approached them, I told them I had something to say to both of them. We all sat down and I told them what Barb had told me. I told them that the only reason I brought it up was because they are a great couple and should look out for each other. If they choose to remain friends with Bill and Jim, they should realize that they may not be as good friends as they think they are. I explained that there was a new man in my life, and life was finally changing. Jack said he was happy for me and found out that something had happened to Bill and Jim. They played the wrong man. I guess they got what they deserved. Jan told me that she always knew I was a good person and life was finally getting better for me. I stood up and shook hands with both of them. After all, Jack and I were already married. There is always a little bit of love that lingers in the heart. I went back to my job. Matt said he had a busy week and wouldn't see me until our double date with Barb and Ray on Saturday. so I tried to keep myself as busy as possible. We met up with Barb and Ray in the lounge at the Sheraton Inn. It was one of the swankiest places in town. Not surprisingly, the guys told Barb and me to dress up. We had drinks and ordered dinner. After eating, we headed to the dance area. The DJ said he had some special announcements and was wishing people happy birthdays and anniversaries. He then walked over to our table with a microphone and held it out to Matt. Matt took it and reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. He got down on one knee and said, "Bree, you are the love of my life. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" I cried at the top of my voice, answering, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He handed the microphone to Ray to put the ring on my finger. The whole audience clapped and screamed. Barb had tears in her eyes as we hugged. I hugged and kissed Matt, I don't know how many times. Then, when everything had quieted down, Ray took the microphone. "Barb, I know we haven't known each other that long, but will you be my wife?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, and when she screamed, "Yes, my God, yes!" there was another roar from the audience. Ray put the ring on Barb's finger. Barb and I cried and hugged our men. Who would have thought they could pull something like this off? Matt and Ray looked at each other and shook hands. Ray looked at Matt and said, "Mission accomplished." The rest of the night passed in a whirlwind of dancing and fun. That night, Barb and I were probably the two happiest women on the planet. Over the next few months, we both got married. Each of us had our own wedding, but we attended the other's wedding. After all, we were now best friends. Epilogue. Barb and Ray were happily married and continued to work at the hospital together. After about a year, Barb had to go on maternity leave. Both mom and daughter are doing great. Jack and Jan attended my wedding. We remained friends, but not close. I could tell they were both happy for me. Bill and Jim didn't make as many appearances in the lounge as they used to. They never found the three seductresses who had put the spoils on them. From what I hear, Bill and Jim don't pull pranks too often. Jack has pretty much stopped considering them close friends, but he still hangs out with them. And then there's me and Matt. I have no secrets from Matt. We hardly ever fight. I feel like I've been through hell in my life, but I've gone to heaven with Matt. I have two adopted children who sometimes call me Bree and sometimes call me Mom. I love and adore them both. I once asked Matt who the three seductresses were. He answered me. Friends, enough said. I never questioned him again and never saw his friends. I never got a chance to say, thank you. Matt said he said it for me. Life is good.